The next repair we're going to do, we call it gouge in the wood. That means it's through the finish, it's through the paint, into the wood, and it actually took a little bit of the wood away. So that's the gouge we're going to repair. The very first step, as in most of the repairs we're going to do today, we're going to clean that area with quick clean and a rag. And we actually have done that already. The next step, because it's a hard fill, I have some really high grit paper, like 800 grit, 1000 grit, and this is wet and dry paper. And what I'm going to do is just scuff the area around that gouge. What I want to do is kind of rough up that area that we're going to have to repair. If I rough the area up a little bit, the aerosols will stick better, and the actual hard fill that we're going to melt into there, that'll stick better as well. The next step in this repair, what we're going to do is clean off the sanding dust, and we're actually going to melt that filler into the Defect. Again, we're going to use a little bit of quick clean, and this will probably be the last time we use it for this repair. I'll put it over here so I make sure not to use it. We're going to turn the knife to the on position. We're going to hold it like a pencil. It's not getting hot yet. When I depress that black button and that light goes on, it's going to get hot. I'm going to hold the stick very close to the door, and I'm just going to melt that right into the gouge. Like I said, this will take probably 5 seconds to heat up, but once it heats up, it's very, very hot. So I'm just going to put a little bit on, spread it around, make sure it's at the very bottom of the Defect, turn it off, and wipe off my tip just so I keep it clean. The next step is going to be to level that hard fill. We're going to try to get that as close as we can to the surface of the wood. And we're going to be doing it with the grater. Now, your tendency might be just to kind of push that into the fill, and I really don't want you to do that. What I want you to do is place the fill right on top and then just drag it back. And you're going to have to do that motion 2 or 3 times, and that's okay. What I don't want you to do is just put it on there and rub back and forth, because what happens is that creates a little bit of friction, and that filler kind of melts a little bit and smears instead of cuts. And we really want that to cut. So it'll look something like this. So you could see the filler has been leveled with all those little teeth. That's pretty level right now. We're going to give it a quick sand, but before we sand it, I like cleaning the grater as soon as possible, so I'm just going to get the scraper, and I'm going to go over the grater with the scraper. The reason I like doing it soon is A, I don't want to forget to do it, but B, it comes out easier when you do it right away. So now what we're going to do is just take that same sandpaper. That might be a hair high. We could go over it with the scraper, but I don't think we're going to get any. We got a little bit off. So that was just, I can't even show you, it's so small. But we got a little bit off. Now we could take the 1000 grit or 800 grit sandpaper and sand it again. We could either do that by hand, or we could do it with a flat block. If you do it with a flat block, you're sure to get a very flat fill. A lot of you will just do it with your hand. You could see that's only a couple swipes, and you could also see that I'm picking up not only filler, but I'm picking up some paint. The next step in this repair is we need to seal that filler into the door, and all those little scratches we made, we want to make sure to fill those in as well. we're going to be using a can of aerosol sealer. And what we're going to do is, like I said before, when I spray this, we're going to direct the overspray off the panel, and we're going to give it a light coat, and we're only going to spray this part of the door. If you really want to, you can mask off the center panel of the door. If I had to do something, I probably would mask off the center panel. I wouldn't mask either the stile or the rail because you need that to blend. But if you're just trying to protect the center panel, you could do that relatively easy. You could even put a cloth on it, something like that. So I have my sealer shaken up. I'm going to give it a nice even coat, and then we're going to let it dry. Always do a test spray. And that's why you always do a test spray. You want to make sure that aerosol actuator is clean. Mine wasn't clean. Much better. Spray right across, start the spray here and the spray here. We're going to let that dry. The sealer's dry now. When I take a look at it on an angle, I could see a lot of those scratches are filled in. We still have a couple coats of white, maybe a coat of clear. So I think we're at a point where we're going to move on. So we'll be done with the sealer, and next up is going to be the white. I really like having a smooth surface every time I paint. So if that sealer was at all rough, you got dirt in it because you were on a job site, you may have to sand with the actual abrasive part of the paper and sand that until it's smooth. What I have here may be a little gritty, maybe a little dusty. I'm actually going to use the back of the sandpaper very lightly, and I'm going to run over the area where I sprayed. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but my fingers were here, here, and here, and you could see that even the back of the sandpaper actually picked up that part of the finish that was making it feel very gritty or dusty. Want to make sure we wipe this down before we spray anything on it, and our next spray is going to be the white spray. Again, make sure the can's shaken real well. When you're spraying it, you're going to be spraying that area, and you really want that filler to kind of be covered up. If not in one coat, definitely two coats. So we're going to put the first coat on now. I always give it a quick shake for luck, and I always give it a quick spray for luck. You do need luck sometimes. Now I'm just going to start spraying here, and it's going to look just like this. Now again, I got that fill about 90% covered, and I really want to keep spraying. I want to get that thing covered. But you have to have some control, and remember that a couple light coats are better than one heavy coat. So I'm going to let that dry just like that. So we put a coat of sealer down. We scuffed it a little bit, made sure it was smooth. Then we put another coat of white paint over top of that. And now we're going to put a second coat of white paint. I'm hoping this one is our last coat of white paint. And as soon as I put that white can down, I'm going to pick up the blender and I'm going to spray the edges of where the white was sprayed. And the reason I'm doing that is I want all those little droplets to melt and kind of blend into the finish. So what's going to be the first can will be the white, then we're going to go over it with the blender. Again, always shake it for luck, always spray, make sure it's spraying well, and here's the spray. Put the white down, pick up the blender. I want to make sure I hit the edges of where I sprayed. Where I sprayed heavy, they don't really need to be blended. But the very edges where only a little bit of paint got, that could be dry. And that blender makes everything lay down and blend into the finish. So we're going to let this dry. All right, we're back. The finish is dry. Covered up the scratched area. Right now, the sheen looks really good. The color looks really good. I had a can of clear aerosol here that's a satin sheen. Here's a pretty good rule of thumb. When your repair looks good, stop. Can I spray a clear on here? Sure can. That'll add a little bit of protection. It'll add a little bit of sheen. If you want to do that, that's fine. If you say to yourself, I like the way it looks now, I'm not going to touch it, then don't put the aerosol on. If you were going to put the aerosol on, can's already shaken, give it a test spray, and all we're going to do is spray the repair area and a little bit of the rail, a little bit of the style would look like this. We're doing this on a flat surface. If I was doing this for real, as soon as I was done spraying, I would turn the door vertical. And the reason I would turn it vertical is if dust comes down, it's going to land on the door while it's wet. If you turn it vertical, you get less dust. If you were doing a cabinet door in place, obviously it's already vertical, but you have to mask off the surrounding area just to make sure you don't get overspray on those other cabinets. You could take off the protective panel. Once this dries, it's going to dry to a satin sheen. So you have the gouge is filled, it's level, it's the right color, it's the right sheen, you're done.